Hello and welcome to my NBA betting series. So far, we have profited $388.58 since the beginning with $100. This video will cover the results from February 1st with our $488.58 budget and 16 individual bets at $30.54 each. We have a chance to profit $445.72 for a potential grand total of $934.30 if we happen to win on all picks. Let's see how we did. First up, we had the Trail Blazers in Memphis, where Damian Lillard and Ja Morant will duel it out for the first time this season. In their last matchup, Damian Lillard was out for the game, and Desmond Bane and Ja Morant led the Grizzlies to a 111-106 win over the Blazers, going for a combined total of 49 points on the road. The Trail Blazers have an offensive rating on the road of 113 and defensive rating of 116.3 compared to their home ratings of 121.8 and 117.2. After accounting for injuries of Ibu Baji and Justice Winslow, the Blazers have an adjusted offensive rating of 118.2. The Grizzlies are the best defensive team at home this season with a defensive rating of 108.2 and offensive rating of 118.5. They will be playing without Steven Adams and John Konchar. Without these two, they have an adjusted rating of 114.5. DraftKings has the Grizzlies favored with a spread of -5.5 and a total over-under at 239 points, for a projected score of 117 to 122. Using my method, the Grizzlies are favored to win with a spread of -8 and a total over-under at 230 for a projected score of 111-119. The final score ended with the Blazers out on top 122 to 112 and a 42-point, 10-assist, 8-rebound performance from Damian Lillard. So we lost on the spread and won on the over-under. Moving on to Philadelphia, the Orlando Magic took on the Sixers. The young roster of the Magic has shown they can hold their own with some of the best in the league. They have beat the Celtics in all of their matchups this season, but they have been inconsistent offensively and just below average defensively. On the road this season, the Magic have an offensive rating of 108.6 and defensive rating of 114.5, meaning on an average away game they are the underdog by a margin of 5.9 points. After adjusting for injuries in Chuma Okeke and Jonathan Isaac, the Magic have an offensive rating of 112.2. For this game, the Sixers are completely healthy, and at home this season they have an offensive rating of 117 and a defensive rating of 111.6. With all their players available, the adjusted offensive rating is 117.5. DraftKings has the Sixers favored by a spread of -9 and a total over-under at 230.5. With our numbers, we find it's more likely that the Sixers win by more than 9, and the total score to be under 230.5, with a projected score of 108 to 118. The actual game ended with the Sixers winning 105 to 94. So in this contest, we won on both the spread and over-under. Next, we have a potential Eastern Conference Finals preview in Boston. We have the Brooklyn Nets battling the Celtics, who are the overwhelming favorites against the Durant-lacking Nets, with a spread of -9 and a total over-under at 225. The Celtics have bested the Nets in their last two matchups, including one where both KD and Kyrie were present. On the road, the Nets have an offensive rating and defensive rating of 115.8 and 116.2 respectively. At home, the Celtics are one of the best teams in the league, with an offensive rating of 121.8 and defensive rating of 111.9. Compared to the Nets' away performances, the Celtics are likely to hit the floor running, but the Nets have been strong offensively lately in their last few games even without Durant. I let the trend of the last few games get the best of me and added 3 points to the Nets' adjusted offensive rating at 114.8 to make it 117.8, even without Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, and TJ Warren. The Celtics are without Marcus Smart and Danilo Gallinari and have an adjusted offensive rating of 121. After plugging in the numbers, we expect the final score to be 114 to 120 with the Celtics out on top. The final score of the game was an overwhelmingly one-sided 96 to 139 Celtics W. So we lost on the spread for this game, but we won on the over-under. Next, we had the healthy Warriors minus Iguodala in Minnesota to play the Timberwolves, who are without Bryn Forbes, Jordan McLaughlin, and their star player Karl Anthony Towns. They've been without Towns for a long while now, and have figured out how to win games without him. So even with these injuries, they're still a threat, especially at home. DraftKings has the Warriors picked as the favorite with a spread of -3.5 and total score of 238. The Warriors have struggled on the road, boasting a whopping defensive rating of 119.4 and offensive rating of 113.1, compared to their 116.8 offensive and 110.4 defensive at home. With only Iguodala out of the lineup for the Warriors, their expected offensive rating is 115.4. The Timberwolves this season at home have an offensive rating of 114.8 and defensive rating of 112.7. With their injuries, the adjusted offensive rating is 113. With the adjusted offensive ratings, pace, and home advantage taken into consideration, we predict that the final score to this game will be 118 to 116 in favor of the Warriors. So we bet against the spread and under 238 total. With a final score of 119 to 114, Timberwolves win. Following the Warriors-Timberwolves game, we have the Thunder at Rockets. The Thunder were without Jeremiah Robinson, Luguentz Dort, and Pokusevski. Oh, and Chet for obvious reasons. The Houston Rockets were without two of their best players in Jalen Green and Kenyon Martin Jr. DraftKings has the Thunder as the favorite with a spread of -6 and total score of 232.5. With offensive and defensive ratings on the road for OKC at 112.2 and 114.5 and an adjusted rating of 115.7 versus the home offensive and defensive ratings of 109.9 and 114.2 for the Rockets, and an adjusted offensive rating of 110.6, we find it's more likely that the Rockets cover the spread and lose by less than 6 points, and the final total score to be less than 232.5 with a predicted scoreline of 116 to 111. The game ended in a 106-112 Rockets win over the Thunder, so we won on both the spread and the over-under. Staying in the Western Conference, we have the Kings and San Antonio to play the Spurs. The Kings have a completely healthy roster, and if you've been following them this season, you would know that they have been mostly healthy for the whole season. I can't recall them having more than 2 injuries at a time. The Spurs are without Romeo Langford and Devin Vassell. Their adjusted offensive rating is 114.2 compared to the Kings' 118.9. On the road, the Kings have an offensive and defensive rating of 113.9 and 113.7. The Spurs have home offensive and defensive ratings of 111.6 and 119.3. With this information, we expect the final score to be 123 to 115 Kings win. DraftKings favors the Kings with a spread of -7.5 and total score of 244. Our numbers suggest it's more likely that the Kings win by more than 7.5 and the total score to be below 244. The game ended with the Kings out on top 119-109, covering the spread and a total score of under 244 at a total of 228. Both bets were a W. In the 7th game of the night, we have the Raptors in Utah to play the logo-swapping Jazz. I mean, seriously, this season I've seen 3 different logos from this team. Get it together. The Raptors have been relatively consistent on the road this season. There hasn't been a big difference between their home and away performances. With away offensive and defensive ratings of 115.2 and 116.5. The Raptors without OG Anunoby and Otto Porter Jr., giving them an adjusted offensive rating of 117. The Utah Jazz has home and offensive and defensive ratings of 119.6 and 114.4. The Jazz are only lacking Micah Porter, so their adjusted offensive rating is 118. Plug in the numbers, carry the one, yada yada. The expected outcome of this game is 116 to 118. Jazz win. DraftKings also has the Jazz favored, but by a spread of -3 and a total score of 230. So we took the Raptors against the spread and the total score to be over 230 for this game. The final score was 128 to 131, Jazz win. So we actually get our money back on the spread bet since it was spot on and we won on the over-under. And finally, we have the Hawks and Phoenix to play the Suns. The Hawks have suddenly started to play like they are a real contending team, and the Suns, on the other hand, have been real inconsistent without Booker. One game the Spurs could beat them by 30, and then the next they could blow out the Celtics. You just never know what's going to happen with them. On the road, the Hawks have had an offensive rating of 116.8 and defensive rating of 117.6. They had their entire roster available and have an adjusted offensive rating of 117.1. The Suns, as mentioned, are without Booker, but also Cameron Payne, Landry Shamet, and Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder has been out the entire season, but I felt like it was worth mentioning. At home, they have an offensive rating of 115.8 and defensive rating of 111.4. Their adjusted offensive rating is 115.3. I don't know how that's possible, but I've quadruple checked. Yes, they're still that high without those players. After crunching the numbers, we expect the final score to be 113 to 120 Suns win. The game ended in a completely one-sided Hawks victory, 132 to 100. We lost on the spread, and because the total score was on the money, we got a refund for that bet. In summary, gambling is frowned upon, the house always wins, the refs are definitely in their pockets, so don't even try. Unless that's not always the case, and we just went 11 for 14 after removing the 2 refunded bets, that is. So in total, we won $215.20 for the night, bringing us up to a total of $703.78 for the next set of games. If you made it this far, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to tune in for the next one to see if our luck continues.